and we'll talk East first. That's where you're going to get 7-seed Michigan State against 3-seed Kansas State and 9-seed Florida Atlantic against a 4-seed in Tennessee. That's Thursday's doubleheader at Madison Square Garden in Midtown Manhattan. The losers of those games, done. The winners will play each other on Saturday. Right now, Tennessee is the favorite to come out of the East at plus 125, Michigan State at plus 300, Kansas State at plus 350, Florida Atlantic at plus 420. I think you and I are in agreement here. I know who I'll pick to come out of the East, but this is the one where you could tell me any of these teams make it, and I would go, okay, sure, that makes sense, because Tennessee's the favorite. Then there's Tom Izzo, and then does Kansas State maybe have the two best players?
That's the best combo. Yeah, it's got the best 1-2 in the region for sure.
And then Florida Atlantic's 33-3.
It's a 33-win team.
Yeah, so like any of these teams, I don't know that there is another regional where I can totally reasonably imagine any of the 4 teams getting out of it, but I can absolutely do that in the East.
I'm excited to be there on Thursday and watch this, because yes, it is a grab bag. I can understand why, if you step back and you look, that maybe the East maybe might have the least appeal of the 4, although for some it might be the South, I guess. But it's probably the East. But that being said, the East also is the only region that has a coach that's won a national championship. Izzo's the only one in the field left that has a national title to his name, and it's the 5th time that it's the 3rd time that Izzo's gotten to a Sweet 16 as a 7 seed. He's reached 15 Sweet 16s in his life. He's the most of any head coach to come out of the Big Ten to do so. And the matchup, I'll just kind of home in real quick on K-State, Michigan State. Michigan State getting here is not a surprise. But if we had said on Selection Sunday only one Big Ten team is going to reach the Sweet 16, Parrish would have said, obviously. And no one would have really expected it to be Michigan State, given where it was in the bracket and the placement of some other Big Ten teams. But lo and behold, Izzo and Izzo. And this is a good 3-point shooting team. It had a wonderful game plan against Marquette. K-State's a different kind of opponent. And, I mean, Marquise Noel is coming off a fabulous run here. I mean, he had 27 points, 9 assists, 3 steals for K-State against Kentucky. He's had better than 25 points and 20 assists in his first 2 career NCAA tournament games. That hasn't happened for a player since Jason Kidd. So he's understandably getting a ton of love. I love the storyline where you got a kid from the Big Apple, goes to the Little Apple, and is now going to return to the Big Apple to play in the Garden in the tournament. That is awesome. And I hope someone's handling his ticket situation there, because he's going to suddenly have 300 friends he didn't know he had that wants to get tickets to that game on Thursday night. And I look forward to seeing the Noel crew in the building to back him up. And between him and Keontae Johnson, the K-State story was a good story in college basketball this season. Jerome Tang was in the discussion basically since mid-December, when we started to take stock at who was making some noise and, all right, who's National Coach of the Year material, and just early on. And then he stayed in that conversation the entire season. And now once you get to a Sweet 16, the 2 coaches, or 2 of the 3 or 4 coaches we talked about most for that, were Matt Painter and Shaka Smart, both in this region. They're gone. Jerome Tang is still sticking around. He made a regional semi in his first year, going from 10th place in the preseason in the Big 12 to a 3 seed, and now getting to play on a Thursday night in Midtown Manhattan. It's an awesome story. This will be a fascinating matchup. K-State obviously ranks as the better team, but I just wonder how Izzo is going to scheme up for Keontae. He's made a living off of shutting down the go-to option on opponents, for opponents and their best player. And K-State's going to want to run and get up and down the floor. Michigan State is not that style, and Michigan State will probably dictate those terms. It doesn't turn people over a ton, but it does shoot the 3 well. And I think that it probably is going to bank on that happening again. Tyson Walker has been tremendous as of late, not just in this tournament, but overall. AJ Hoggard made a couple of really great plays, and Joey Hauser woke up as well. And then they have Malik Hall, who just kind of does a little bit of everything. He just steps up and gets it done. So I would expect a regression to the mean in a positive manner for MSU. It only went 2 of 16 from deep against Marquette. I don't think that's going to repeat itself against Kansas State. I will go with Kansas State narrowly in the game. Narrowly, I think that has a really, really good chance at being a very close game. I'll take them narrowly, but MSU making an Elite Eight is going to shock not one single human being on this planet if it happens.
Well, you mentioned Kansas State rates better, which is true. Kansas State's 21st at KenPom. Michigan State's 25th. Regardless, Michigan State is a 2-point favorite in the game. So the books have flipped this for Tom Izzo, which is notable. Izzo, by the way, is 10-4 all time in Sweet 16 games, and he's won each of his last 4 Sweet 16 games. So, listen, I'm picking Kansas State to win the game as well and advance to the Elite Eight. I had Kansas State in the Elite Eight in my original bracket on Selection Sunday, but the Tom Izzo factor is a real thing. Jerome Tang said after Kansas State beat Kentucky, those old Kentucky players are not, they can't help you. Anthony Davis, he didn't say this, but what he was saying, Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns, they're not walking through that door. They can't impact this basketball game. But Tom Izzo, even though he's not on the court, can impact that basketball game. And it does appear that the betting markets have moved the number off of what it ordinarily would be, at least in some, in some ways, because of the presence of Tom Izzo on this stage. I love this game. Marquise Noel from Harlem, Tyson Walker on the other side, went to Christ the King in Queens. So you got 2 little New York City guards going at it in the Sweet 16 in Madison Square Garden. So that's awesome. And then in the other game, Rick Barnes, 3-4 all time in Sweet 16 games. UT is -4 according to KenPom, but the line is Tennessee -5.5. So that's something to worth paying attention to. Florida Atlantic is now up to 22nd at KenPom. And if you remember, we talked a lot throughout the season about Tennessee's inconsistent resume. The one thing Tennessee has been good at is against other good teams. Tennessee is 6-1 against top 25 KenPom teams this season, 6-1. Now they got 9 losses to sub 25 KenPom teams, but they're 6-1 against top 25 KenPom teams. So, it gives me a little hesitation that the KenPom number is Tennessee -4, and the point spread's actually more than that. But I think Florida. I'm going to take Florida Atlantic. I think Florida Atlantic wins the game. So obviously, I would.
We just did them in. Yeah,
it's over for them.
We are doing Final Four and 1, and so this is one of them. Game 1.
Game 1 of. And the way we're going to do the Final Four and 1 today is I'm going to pick one game from each regional. We'll do it as we go through the regionals, and then Deadleg will have his and one at the end. Oh, by the way,
you've been mounted and surmounted. That's by the way. Okay.
Have I been surmounted?
Yeah. Nada. Can we get an update?
Have I been surmounted?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even call it mounted. What happened to you? Norlander's up 3 games.
You went like that.
You kind of went 0-5 over last week.
What? How did I do that?
Just you being you.
You took Drake. That's why.
Yeah, problem.
That
was a problem.
It all went wrong with Drake. So
yeah.
Well,
that's unfortunate.
It is.
That's a little deflating. I was wrong.
Yep, that's right.
That's quite the turn of events.
That's true. By the way, going region by region, this is smart by you because you know what that means. I can't do this. I can't do that for 30 minutes, so we're not done.
Game 1. I'm a little deflated now.
You've been surmounted is what you've been.
I was under the impression I had been surmounted. I did not know I had been surmounted so dramatically. That's a tough thing to deal with on a Tuesday morning.
It is.
Game 1, Florida Atlantic, Tennessee. Vols minus 5.5. I've already let it known. I'm taking Florida Atlantic plus the 5.5.
Congrats to Tennessee.
It's over for them.
I'm because I'm also taking Florida Atlantic plus the 5.5, and I'm taking Florida Atlantic straight up. Straight up. FAU is going to win the game.
I got Florida Atlantic straight up too. They're going to lose by 22 points.
It's over for them.
It's over. Dusty,
Hootie.
I'm happy for you. Hootie hoo. I'm happy for you. You had a wonderful season. But I'm afraid you have no chance of winning this next game because we both picked you to win it.
It's over. It is. This is the first Conference USA team, as mentioned before, to make the second weekend since the Memphis Tigers in 2009. Credit to Chris Falica, the Bear. He put this out on Twitter, though. 4 seeds are 6-10 facing teams seeded 8th or 9th in the Sweet 16 since 2000. They're 2-7 against the spread when facing them. So 6-10 overall 4 seeds are versus 8 or 9s. Keep that in mind. Janelle Davis, by the way, has been a dude for the Owls, man. 29 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals in FAU's win over FDU. The first player to ever do that in a tournament. FDU couldn't sustain itself down the stretch. FAU pulled away, and it was basically because of Davis. Davis single-handedly outscored the Knights over the final 8+ minutes of that game. Listen, in all seriousness, the reason why I'm taking Florida Atlantic in this one is 33 wins. It's got experience up and down the roster. There is no team that is in this tournament that is more experienced playing with each other and has a deeper bench. And I actually think that does matter with the way that Dusty May and this team plays. They get out and guard you beyond the 3-point line and on the interior. They are reliable in that regard. Now, to get here, FAU needed a break from the officials because Memphis probably should have had that timeout. They called a jump ball. The arrow went to the Owls, so they got that near the end of the game. And then they were able to rally late, but they didn't shoot well for the majority of that game against FDU, 16 seed, maybe got a little bit tight. Now they're here. FAU has been abnormally subpar shooting the ball basically since it got to postseason play. It played well against UAB, but first couple of CUSA tournament games and then against Memphis and FDU, it just hasn't been shooting well. Tennessee is not the team to break that trend against, normally speaking, but maybe the hoop gets a little bit bigger there. The Vols are coming off such an extremely impressive defensive performance. They jumped UCLA. They're now the number 1 per possession defense again in college basketball, according to Ken Palm. So it's going to be difficult. Teams are only shooting 26.4% from 3-point range against Tennessee. That has been something that has been existed since the start of the season. On average, FAU shoots 36.7. If you're the Owls, you're hoping you play well and you're above 30%, and you take the hockey shifts and hopefully you show out. It'll be interesting, but I'll take FAU to win straight up, which means I've got Owls versus Wildcats in the Elite Eight.